Well, hey, good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the CI Chit Chat. Looks like a variety of new folks, too. Welcome if you're new, and welcome back if you've been here before. We do this every Tuesday, and we record all of them. They end up on our YouTube page. You can find them at Continuum Mag's YouTube page and on our Topsoil podcast. So making sure that we get the content out there, trying to educate as many folks in this topic as we can. I'm up in Minnesota here today, and I'm Mitchell. I'm the founder here at Continuum Mag. I'm in Minnesota today. We're going to be educating a whole bunch of farmers. I think it's supposed to be about 150 people at this event. We're in Morton, Minnesota, Redwood Falls. I don't know if you'd consider that Southwest Minnesota or not. I don't know. Somewhere there, though, west of Mankato. So I suppose to me that's Southwest Minnesota. Going to be running a bunch of CI scores. If you haven't gotten your CI score yet, you can go to topsoil.ag and get your CI score. Let us know. We can help you out, or you can go do it yourself and utilize the billion bushel challenge code BBC95. You get your CI score for just $25. Takes like 10 minutes. That's at topsoil.ag, code BBC95. Let me tee things up a little bit rather than just jumping right in, especially for folks that are new. How we always start this is, what the heck are we talking about here with this whole CI thing? CI stands for carbon intensity. It's a unit of measure that's specifically been utilized in the fuel and energy space for a long time, at least since the 90s, maybe before that. The carbon intensity is essentially the carbon footprint per unit of measure, per unit of energy, or we can convert it to a per bushel basis. So the carbon footprint per bushel, or the carbon footprint as it's converted into ethanol or other products. The standard for calculating carbon intensity is by utilizing the GREET model. That's GREET. It's an acronym. Stands for the big old long name. But GREET, the GREET model was developed by the U.S. Department of Energy, first released clear back in the mid-90s. So this is nothing new. They've been doing this for 30 years, but we continue to make this better, refine the calculations, and they release new versions of the GREET model periodically over time, and they'll continue to do that. On Topsoil, we're utilizing the 2023 GREET model. It was released just earlier this year, and we do anticipate that they'll probably update it again, which is fine. Like, we need to have as accurate of data as the best, most sound science that we can. It's great. We've got an awesome story to tell in agriculture and in biofuels. We need to tell an accurate story and make sure that we have the science to back it up, which is great. This is really important because there's a new tax credit that could end up really making this very valuable to understand your CI score, to get it verified, and to collaborate with our friends in the biofuel space to go after these tax credits together. It's called 45Z. It's due to start January 1. We haven't had any major rules come out yet, but there was some rules that were just dropped about 3 weeks ago now. And the rules were complete surprise rules that came out from the IRS. And they laid out some stipulations that each of the biofuel producers that's going to participate in 45Z, they all have to do some paperwork because it's government stuff. So if you're involved in your local ethanol plant, on the board, or folks on the call that represent ethanol plants, make sure that you look into that guidance. Make sure you talk to your CPA firm and get the paperwork in. The paperwork is in these rules that the IRS put out. They said each biofuel producer, you need to do this paperwork, and if you have paperwork in your application submitted before July 15th, it will guarantee that they will have it processed and done so that you can start qualifying for the 45Z credit on January 1st. If you don't have your paperwork in by July 15th, they might not have it done by January 1st, which comments to myself on why it would take that long, but that's okay. The most important thing being that they said that if you want to qualify on January 1st, get this paperwork in, with the key thing there being January 1st. They're still saying January 1st is when they anticipate this thing starting. Rock and roll. They also had a big, long list of available feedstocks that they anticipate will be eligible for 45Z. They had all these ones that apply to all of us on the call, as far as corn-based ethanol and corn kernel fiber and corn stover and all kinds of different stuff. So nothing earth-shattering, but it's momentum. They're thinking about us. We need to be ready for it. So at this point, we can continue to anticipate that 45Z starts on January 1st, and that would be for biofuel produced starting on January 1st. Biofuel produced in calendar year 2025 will be produced with the crop that we're growing right now. The crop that we're growing right now has a carbon footprint influenced by everything that is going into that crop, which would include things that we did this past fall, such as the tillage, manure, cover crop, fertilizer, all that kind of stuff. We got to be documenting all this stuff now. That's what we're doing at Continuum Ag. You can utilize our software to document your farming practices. You can participate in our CI certification program and opt into getting verified in our big bulk of farms. You've got to be in before harvest. That's when we've got to submit the first tranche of data to our third-party verifier. They're out of Iowa, but before harvest, we've got to submit them like the boundaries and as much of the management information as possible. We've got to get you in and get all this data documented before harvest. In order to do that, we are upping our pricing on July 1. The price is moving from $5 an acre to $7. Nothing crazy, but it is going up. We want to get you in, spread the workload out here. The longer we wait, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to take a lot more work to rush this all at the end and to attempt to look back and gather all this data. So we're doing a price increase and just got plenty of good volume coming in too. So we've got to keep staffing up. We're building all kinds of awesome tools. So be sure to talk to your Continuum Ag representative. They'd be happy to show you some of the new tools that we're launching to really make this simple and scalable. We've got a lot of farms that are going to be subject to 45Z, about a third of the corn farms in the country. So a lot of data that's going to be required, and we're trying to get on it. So check that out, goodtopsoil.ag, and get ahead of this. It's a big, big deal and could put some major dollars in your pocket. So be paying attention. Good to have you here. Let's jump into questions. Put your questions in the chat. I've got my boy Michael is on here with us today. We're missing Diana today. Our thoughts are with her. She's doing fine. Geez, that sounded bad. She's doing fine. Michael is with us here today and going to be monitoring the chat and helping me out here from the back end. So, but I've got a couple questions here that have come in using our link. You can submit questions throughout the week, and they come to me. We vet through those and have them ready to rock and roll here for every Tuesday. But put them in the chat if you've got questions there too. But anyway, I got a couple of them to get us started. Kyle is asking that on our website, we show that our average customer has a pretty darn low CI score. He said 10.6, but the national average is 29. What's the biggest contributor to the difference? So I love this question. In December last year, we launched the Billion Bushel Challenge. Just corn going to ethanol alone in the U.S. is more than 5 billion bushels. About a third of the U.S. corn crop goes to ethanol every year. At Continuum Ag, we're on a mission to help get the first billion bushels scored. We're currently at 300 million bushels, and the average CI score is 11.2. Already, whether you're participating in this stuff or you think it's a bunch of baloney, it doesn't matter. You already have a CI score, and it has been given to you by the U.S. Department of Energy. The average default CI score is around 29.1. What we have found, though, is instead of our farmers being around that default of 29, our average farmer comes in at 11.2. So to Kyle's question, what's driving the difference? The biggest driver in lowering your CI score, for most counties, it's county by county specific. So I've got to generalize here. For most counties, the best way to reduce your CI score is plant a cover crop. Another major driver is utilize manure. Utilize manure rather than a bunch of synthetic fertilizer, or just utilize manure. Checking that box. Doesn't necessarily matter what species, doesn't necessarily matter too much on the rate. Of course, those things have nuance to them, but utilizing manure is a huge way to reduce your CI score. So cover crop, manure. Number 3 is reducing tillage. No-till is definitely the best, but if you're in a reduced till program, like we count strip till and reduced till, maybe they'll count it as no-till. There's some indication and potential of that, but even going to a reduced tillage program or no-till, significantly better than utilizing conventional tillage. Again, for the mass majority of the counties, improving your yield is another key driver for improving your CI score. Reducing your synthetic fertilizer, really optimizing that nutrient use efficiency. So optimizing the amount of fertilizer in to the amount of grain out. But again, big 3, cover crop, manure, reduce tillage. That's where we're seeing the CI reductions. On my farm, I'm checking multiple of those boxes. My score last year was a negative 4.1. There's lots of farmers that have scored that are negative 20 some. Really, really low scores. But our average is 11.2. We encourage you to at least get your score, like at a minimum. It's not hard to do. You can go to topsoil.ag. We're happy to do it. You can also go and download the actual GREET model. It's a government free tool. It's quite complicated. And that's why when I first was messing with it, I'm like, wow, this is a mess. Let me, put our software people on this. And we built the front end interface to make it a lot easier for the farmer. And you can see that at topsoil.ag. But get your score at a minimum. But I do encourage you to utilize our system to get your data organized. It's a couple bucks an acre. I cannot 100% guarantee when that ROI will happen. But gosh darn, like the world is going in this direction. There's a lot of opportunities out there. We would love to work with you. And in our system, you own your data. You're in control. That's why as a farmer, why I built this system is I wanted to figure out how to monetize and control my own data on my farm. And now we've built out the systems for all the other farmers to do the same. So that's what we're after. All right, let me hammer on a couple other questions here. And like I said, put them in the chat too. Would love to get to any of your questions on for those of you on the call today. Roger's asking, when we get all of these tax credits, what tax credit falling out of bed? Today they're worth about 95% of face value, but this market will move up and down, right? Great question, Roger. I've asked this exact question to multiple tax credit brokers because I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, hey, this 5C thing could create a couple $1 billion worth of tax credits. Now, it's going to take a couple of years to build it up to that point. It's going to take a lot of work to get to significant tax credit creation. But say we end up creating the total maximum amount for corn ethanol, which would be $1 a gallon, and we produce about 16, almost 17 billion gallons of ethanol every year. So call it 17 billion gallons, $17 billion worth of tax credit. And I've asked companies even way higher numbers than that. Like, what if we could create, with all the SAF stuff and all this, what if we created $50 billion worth of tax credits? Would that impact anything? They're like, no. Like, there are trillions of dollars of taxes paid in this country every year. The market is more than abundant for buying these tax credits. Now, the value might go down a little bit, right? Simple supply and demand. More supply of tax credits, demand that is, it's continuing to go up, of course, every year. There's more and more taxes being paid. But for the most part, fairly stable on the demand side. So over time, sure, it could go down, but not anytime soon. And the whole deal in this tax credit thing, in my mind, is it's make hay while the sun's shining. I'm not long-term bullish on tax credits. I think it's way too fragile. Stroke of a pen and they're gone. And I think free market is going to end up taking over a lot of these initiatives. We're just setting a precedent here, and a precedent as to how to calculate our carbon footprint and what the financial value is. It's tax credits and government that's pumping it up to begin with. And yeah, we've got to play in the tax credit resale market. Roger's suggesting that the resale value of these tax credits being about 95 cents on the dollar. There's similar tax credits being sold today for 92 to 95 cents on the dollar. So pretty well in range with what I'm hearing from our friends in that space. But like I said, what they're telling me is like there's so much demand for tax credits, that market just being huge. We could max out this tax credit and there still would be more than ample demand. So maybe that changes over time. But if we get to that point, like the goalposts are going to continue to change. We are years away. This is a 3-year tax credit as it's written today, 2025 through 2027. Let's capitalize on this darn thing and bring as many dollars to our rural communities as possible and invest back into better sustainable agriculture, technology, resiliency on our farms and in our supply chains. Nate's asking, if I get a CI score from Iowa Pork in their sustainability program, is that good enough? That's great that you're getting that, Nate. You can get CI scores from Iowa Pork. Was it American Coalition for Ethanol, ACE, or something like that? They have like a free CI tool that you can find on their website. Like there's a variety of ways that you can get your CI score. And like I said, you can go download the actual GREET model. Go to Google. You can find it. It's tough. It's going to take you a while. Or you can go to topsoil.ag. Our system takes a couple minutes, and we've really streamlined it for farmers. And yeah, we charge a couple bucks for it because I've spent crazy money on developing software to do it, and I got to keep the lights on somehow. But yeah, get your score wherever you want. Just knowing your score though isn't going to do anything. Like if I claim that my score is a negative 30, what do you do? It doesn't mean anything unless it's third-party verified. That's the key. And that's really what we do here. We're the ones that are really trying to be proactive, where the farmer is running the show, the farmer and their agronomist, or we can help you out there too. The farmer's running the show to document their data and to get verified. And then with that verified CI score, now we see what the best opportunities are going to be. We've recently announced we're going to be building a marketplace, some basic infrastructure for price discovery and documentation of where these verified CI scores are moving. Think of it as a certificate for every single bushel. We got to document where those certificates were created and where they're being sold to. The IRS has already laid out some pretty good guidance and similar tax credits about the transparency that's going to be needed and the rigor that's going to be needed in verification. So we need to get verified. You can get verified through a variety of different programs. That's great. I don't really care, to be honest. Obviously, we would love to work with you and would love to have you get verified through our program. But wherever you're going to do it, as long as they're going to those IRS standards, game on. Let's do it. The more volume, the better in my mind. We need to make this entire market go. But get your CI score. Then you got to figure out how to get it verified. It's with that verified CI score that you can actually monetize. There's a lot of different programs out there that are saying, don't pay to get verified. Don't work with these Continuum guys. We'll verify it for you. We will cover the cost for you. And farmers are opting into that. That's fine if you want to do that. Enroll in somebody's program. They'll cover the cost of verification. They'll cover the cost of the data connection. You don't gotta pay nothing. That's fine if you want to do that. What I'm worried about is you're signing your name on the dotted line at the very beginning now. And who is getting all your data there? And what control and what ownership do you have? Because my understanding, you don't have a whole lot. Now you didn't pay nothing, and maybe they'll give you some kind of a premium in return. That's all good. Our intent here is to make sure that we really understand what is the actual CI score on the farm. We're providing insights and recommendations as to how to lower that CI score. We're getting the farmers independently verified. We're then the farmers in control of where they would like to sell that certificate to if the market emerges. The real thesis on all this being that I believe if there's transparency in this space and if there's equitable share, we can grow the pie. Meaning, if farmers are getting an adequate share and there's transparency in this, I think more farmers would come to the table. I think more farmers will be incentivized to actually adopt some of these regenerative practices and lower their CI score. And we can actually make these markets be scalable and longer term beyond just 3 years of the tax credit. If farmers get a couple pennies on the dollar and are kept in the dark, I don't think it's going to work out. And that's why we're trying to be proactive with doing an independent verification program. So, but farmer, it's up to you. As long as you feel good about your decision, more power to you. Love it. Ashley, thanks for the question here. If the farmer is not selling directly to the ethanol or biodiesel plant, is having a CI score still beneficial to the farmer? Yes. I would at least encourage you to, again, just get your base CI score and then be talking with your elevator, whoever you're selling to. If you're selling through the elevator, we need to know where are they selling to. If that elevator ends up selling to the ethanol plant, they absolutely need this data. And how this is going to work, we're working with multiple different elevators. The elevator is the one that needs to be buying the CI data, right? Basically buying your data from the farm. Then they own that data. They own those certificates. They can blend those certificates or sell them with the corn, of course. It's got to be tied to the bushels, but they can then pass along and sell that to the ethanol plant. So yeah, talk to your elevator. They need to get on the ball here. I'm happy to discuss this with them and show them how they can make some money in this space as well. And at that point, actually, that'd be the opportunity to actually enroll in a verification program. If they're not going to play ball, you might have to look at alternatives, which stinks because I mean, we would love to work with those local folks that we've worked with for years, and plenty of folks don't have on-farm storage to be able to have alternatives, so might kind of be stuck and leaving significant potential opportunity on the table. So we need to have a conversation with them now to see what's their strategy. We can help them to develop one if they're not on the ball already. The other piece of this is right now the money and the big opportunity is in the biofuel space, but I'm very bullish on other programs being developed as well for low carbon pork or low carbon eggs, or in the future low carbon exports and stuff. So maybe some of those other market opportunities that you're looking at, Ashley. But even to start the conversation, it's best to go in there with some data saying, hey, I got my CI score. Here's what it is. I think there could be some opportunity here, but I can't do it by myself as a farmer. So, hey, can we collaborate here? And what do you guys think about this? And hey, I think we could have some opportunity here. Go into it being humble, right? And being empathetic and saying, let's go work together. Don't go in there cussing them, saying, are you guys trying to screw me out of some money here and take this for yourself? Like, that's a bad strategy. Go in there empathetic and collaborative, and loop me in wherever you need me. Maxwell, thanks for the question. Do climate smart CRP practices contribute to lowering your CI score within 45Z? No. So CRP would be set aside areas. What goes into your CI score is just what happened on those exact acres that were growing the corn. So it doesn't factor in waterways or buffers, terraces, CRP areas. None of that gets factored in. It's just the management practices that went into growing the corn. You can see the data that we collect on topsoil in the farm profile. It's that information. It's actually a watered down version of that information, but that type of information is what's collected. It goes into 45Z. At some point in the future, maybe they'll look more holistically, right, at your total farming operation. But today it's just tied to the acres where the actual corn is produced. But good question. Corey, we're hearing from farmers some concern in engaging on any CI score system because it may set a metric for mandatory regulations in the future. Do you have any thoughts on that concern? Do you hear anything similar? Yeah, 100%, a huge concern of mine. And I think the best way to have that happen is to not participate and to not get ahead of this. Because right now, the government thinks that our carbon footprint in our CI score is around a 29. And what we found with our billion bushel challenge is, in reality, the average farmer is actually almost 2/3 lower than what they give us credit for, at an average score of 11.2. So, like, the best way to be regulated is if they think that we're at 29 and that we're polluting the atmosphere like crazy, right? Which I believe right now the current math is that agriculture is like 10% of the U.S. carbon footprint or something like that. So not doing something, not taking the carrot, best opportunity to get regulated, right? You don't take the carrot, here comes the stick. Now, will this metric become a standard that everyone will have a CI score? It'll be a standard on the scale ticket. I absolutely think that will happen. And over time, sure, there might be less value in having a low CI score as there's more supply of low carbon grain and the demand stays the same or the demand shifts or whatever. Sure, that can go away, but I mean, we're talking years and decades into the future here for some of these things. So, but I mean, yeah, I mean, farmers, if they don't want to be regulated, if you want to be regulated, then don't have your data and let the government think that you're polluting like crazy and have a CI score of 29. I think we have to be on the offense here. And I think in agriculture, a lot of times we're not, right? Like we like to kind of keep to ourselves. We like to do our farming, stay out of my business, right? Unless they're paying us, then we take their money. But we mostly say, stay out of my business. Let me do what I want to do. And that's fine. But then there's all this disconnect and we do get regulated. I think here's a pretty awesome opportunity to actually be on the offense, to tell our story. We have a great story to tell. And what I love about this and why I'm pushing it so much is as we're looking at this metric about lowering our CI score, the practices that lower your CI score just happen to be practices that improve soil health, improve water quality, improve all these other improve your bottom line profitability. I love those things. I don't necessarily care long term exactly about what are going to be the mechanisms and what's going to be the exact metric, but I just like the whole concept and putting dollars back in farmers' pockets. So let's see. I've got two more here, but really, really good question, Corey. I would love to chat more on that or have conversations with farmers because, again, I think we got to be on the offense here, not sitting back and in my mind, like everyone's playing defense and just sitting and waiting. And this thing starts 6 gosh darn months. Like we have got to go. Anyway, Ryan, I want to understand how tillage practices affect a CI score. What qualifies as no-till? So Ryan, again, you go to topsoil.ag and go in there, run different scenarios and stuff with different tillage practices, and you can see what it does to your CI score. We have a toggle tool in there where after you do your farm profile, you can see your score. Then you can run scenarios and recalculate your score. It's pretty slick, actually. It's actually really cool. It shows you what your score is and shows what tax credit could be created by your biofuel manufacturer. So it gives a great talking point where you can show, hey, here we can go collaborate. Let's try to go after some of this money. In the current definition that was laid out within the 40B rules, which is only for sustainable aviation fuel, which is 17 million gallon market, which is what it was last year. U.S. ethanol alone is 17 billion gallon market, way, way bigger. That's why 45Z is important. 40B ends at the end of this year, but it gave us definitions. It said that no-till, no-till would be any practices that leave the residue evenly distributed on the surface. You cannot incorporate that residue, right? So like no chiseling or any even like a reduced tillage type stuff that leaves some residue on the surface, like no disturbing the residue across the surface. However, you can incorporate the residue directly where the seed is going to be planted, like in the furrow, meaning you can do strip till, your row cleaners and stuff like that are moving some of that crop residue. That stuff's all fine, but you just can't do any full width tillage that would disturb they have some other rules in the actual guidance. It's some terminology that I'm forgetting right now, but it essentially boils down to leave the residue where it's at. You can't necessarily change all the orientation and stuff of it, and you can't incorporate that residue. But strip till does count. We will see what happens with 45Z, but in 40B, the sustainable aviation fuel credit that ends at the end of this year, strip till would qualify. But you can go on the difference between reduced till and no till in most counties that I've tested is pretty minimal. So even if there's a discrepancy between those two, we can be conservative, and it's not that big of a difference. Conventional till to reduced till, that's a much bigger jump in your score than reduced till to no till, at least in most counties. All right, last one here, unless we get one more final one in the chat, but we're up against time. Stuart's asking, how do I see previous programs? I think I have a low score, but need to use accepted methods for my calculation. I'm an ag engineer, so I love calculations. Stuart, that's awesome. We love nerds. We got a bunch of nerds on the team of Continuum Ag. So you can go and Google the actual GREET calculator. You can see some of the different versions of the GREET model, or you can go to topsoil.ag and you can calculate your CI score in our system. So the method for the calculations is that GREET feedstock calculator developed by the U.S. Department of Energy at Oregon National Lab. There's a variety of other programs out, or other calculations out there as well. But what we're using in the topsoil tool is that GREET model. Taylor, updates on soybeans. Talking with a variety of groups on soybeans. Soybeans is still a thing, and we actually have now our systems built out. You can get your CI score on soybeans at topsoil.ag. So go ahead and get your score there on soybeans. Talk to your crusher. We are enrolling farmers in CI certification for soybeans. It's the same kind of protocol as we're doing on corn. So we do encourage you that if your beans are going to go into crush and go into biodiesel or renewable diesel, you definitely should be getting your CI score and get verified. The problem is, in corn, 1 bushel of corn equates to about 3 gallons of ethanol, for easy math. Cents each gallon is worth 2 cents per CI point reduced. Then every point that you reduce your CI score on corn could be worth up to 6 cents per point per bushel. On soybeans, 1 bushel of soybeans equates to about 1.5 gallons of biodiesel, meaning that each CI point reduced on soybeans is worth about 3 cents per point total in the tax credit. So it's significantly less amount per point, and then converted to a per acre basis, it's not quite as amazing, but still significant ROI. I do not know the average soybean score. That's a great question, though. I wish I had that off the top of my head. I do not have that number, though, but I've seen some amazing drops, like meaning rather than be at a CI score of like plus 40, I've seen some that are like -10, -20, like 40-point reductions in your CI score on soybeans. But the key with soybeans and how the model works today is really the only drivers to reduce your CI score is you got to be using cover crops and no-till. It's just the defaults in soybeans are already quite low. So the only real drivers that move the needle is no-till and cover crop. So you can go on to topsoil and get your score. It works. It's all on there. We do not display any type of financial number because it's way too, there's too many moving parts to it. But, and they might have had something, actually, a very basic one. We were discussing it the other day, workshopping, should we display anything there? But you can go on there and get your score. I think on our farm, our score for soybeans is like a -2 or something like that. But we're no-till and cover crop. But go on topsoil, you can check yours out for yourself. But it is a good point. I'll see if we can get an average CI score for all the soybeans that we've scored here at some point in the near future. But anyway, all right, I got to go give a talk at this conference up here in Minnesota today. Yes, thank you, Michael. We have a webinar that we're doing on Thursday with Kelly Garrett, who's one of the guys that's been the most successful in the carbon markets. He was a speaker at our Topsoil Summit. He's really digging into CI here now. So please join us on Thursday as we talk with Kelly. It's going to be a really fun time. Other than that, we'll be back next week. I don't know what my plan is going to be. I'm going to be in London next week, so you might have some special guests here on the Chit Chat. But have a great rest of your week, everyone. Appreciate the time. We'll see you next time.